Well, for people who are joining this live stream, this is a meeting where we're talking about functions in Wolfram Language which have been tagged as experimental and which we are considering making non-experimental for our upcoming future integer release. So this will be a collection of different kinds of things we're looking at today. And let's start off here with curry. I don't know. I think we are not really ready to make this non-experimental because I think we have started to see serious usage of the simple cases of this, but I'm not completely confident that the more complicated cases are right. What do you have to say, Jose, in particular?
I fully agree with what you said. We have seen usage of the simple cases, and I'm more or less confident of the need of the permutation because that's the general case. But yes, we can keep this experiment on and see how to proceed later.
Okay, fine. Let's move on to the next set of items. So next thing we have is a bunch of things related to, okay, so we've got remote connect, remote connection object, and related things. So remote connect. You claim that this is ready for prime time.
Yeah, I think it's doing pretty well. It seems pretty stable as far as I can tell. There's a few minor, bugs here and there with passwords and caching and saving. So
why isn't this using our authentication string? Why isn't this using, because we've got now this mechanism for authentication dialogue, right? An authentication dialogue, right, like this. We'll do that, right? Why is this not using that?
That is one of the things that we meant to add this in this current release. So it's not in 11.3, but we're planning on making the switch to using authentication dialogue.
So that's a different design, isn't it?
It could use authentication dialogue underneath, even if it doesn't.
No, but the design that's specified here, I see. So this is saying remote connect of username password is equivalent to blah, blah, blah. But this authentication dialogue as a second argument here would suggest that you should be able to say host and then username password like that. And do we believe that the authentication is always, the way that this caching works, okay, you're not proposing de-experimentalizing the caching mechanism. Is that correct? Because that will ultimately be stored in a keychain or something, right?
Yeah, I think we want to change that mechanism, but I think after we change that, a lot of the other things, like in general, just the general function is okay. But remote authorization caching is a little bit kind of iffy, and I think we'll want to switch to using the keychain mechanism. And I'm not entirely sure how that'll look yet.
Okay, but so there's a cluster of things here around remote run. Remote run works the same way as remote connect, right?
Yep. So remote run and remote run process all do the same kind of connection to a remote machine. Remote run will just run your commands like you would on in a terminal, and remote run process will actually get you more information back from it.
Mm-hmm. This documentation is not done correctly. This should have had separators between the things which are about different topics. Who is reviewing this documentation for these connectivity things? Is Arnaud in this meeting? Can he comment on that?
Yeah, I'll review that. That looks wrong. I agree.
But what is the general process here?
Well, I mean, you get to review it as well, but
No, I don't.
examples,
I'm not looking at these examples. I'm not looking at them. I'm specifically not looking at them. I'm looking at the functionality stuff for these functions.
I can take care of it. I know how to do it right. So
yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm not wild about de-experimentalizing these particular things because I feel like there's still, we don't really have remote evaluate working yet, do we?
Not quite.
I don't think we should de-experimentalize these. I don't think I don't think it's necessary to do it. I don't think we should do it.
Okay. I don't mind waiting another release or something like that.
Right. Okay. Let's see. The other things you have listed here are system process data and system processes. So system process data. Great. That's encouraging. What's that?
Not sure. Is that a 11.4? Or not 11.4?
No, it's a prototype build.
Okay.
That wasn't the thing I thought I was opening there. Okay, let's look at it.
It'd be related to the Unicode changes during 12.
Yes, it's possible. Let's look at it here. Okay. So, are you proposing de-experimentalizing this process object, or the process object is already de-experimentalized because it's the same process object as started by run process? Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. So it's started as de-experimentalized. So we've just been adding bits and pieces to it.
So if I look at this, for example, and I look at ask for properties of this, what will I see?
It should show you all the properties.
Okay.
List of.
Cool. So if I say threads, is that the count of the number of threads? Yes.
Yep.
It's not the threads themselves.
Right. We don't have any thread objects or anything like that yet.
Okay, that's nice there. And the path? Okay, so that's just a string. That's not a file object, for example.
Right.
Probably okay. Program. Okay. Why does it say that in seconds? Why is that not turning into something that is more
something
in a more reasonable units? What the heck is that? The heck is that? Why isn't that in with units? Memory had units. Why doesn't the time have units? I think the time needs to have units. Make sense?
I think so.
Okay. And then this should be converted to some unit that is actually semi-readable. I mean, I don't see why.
It could be hours and days or something like that.
Well, at least in this display, I think for the output here, arguably it could stay as seconds. And if I do, let's see, if I do real time here, oh, for goodness sake. Why doesn't unit convert it into some more sensible units here?
Because the single argument version of unit converts to SI base units.
Is that actually right? I mean, is that what it should do? Is there a way to get this to convert to sensible units?
Right now, we bandied around the idea of having a quantity simplifier. We have unit simplify, but it is, as the function name suggests, focused on the unit part and not on the quote unquote, sensible scaled unit. And there's
We
no
really should have a mechanism for that. I mean, even if it's unit convert with automatic as the second argument or something. I mean, we clearly have the technology to do it.
Yeah. Michael, do you have any general thoughts? I think I saw you here.
Yeah, I think that seems sensible. But I would say the current one, where the one argument goes to SI base, is for scientific applications, definitely the right one, I think.
Yes. Fine.
And you
Fine.
don't want to end up in some black hole formulas with hours and days, mixed radix and such things.
No, I agree. But you also, and it's also good to have something where you can immediately do numerical comparisons.
Right.
So maybe we should try for a unit convert with a second argument of automatic doing this different thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't think of any other reasonable meaning for a second argument of automatic.
Fine, let's try doing this.
Yeah, basically what we do in alpha, kind of find something sensible so the number comes. The leading one is pretty nice.
Sorry, but wouldn't it be nicer to have this in unit simplify, and perhaps this will need users' specification of the ranges they want? Like, give me these from this number to that number. So I would prefer to extend unit simplify to do this than unit convert.
Not unreasonable.
I'm not so sure. It's like normal simplify. We have a default meaning of it, and but you can specify a complexity function that you can say you consider simpler, what's in actually is bigger. And I think going, say, from seconds to days is not a simplification. It's a conversion.
Fair. That's a fair point. Okay, I don't think that's the discussion for this meeting. I think we can go ahead and try to get an implementation in unit convert with an automatic second argument, and then we can discuss the possibility. It seems very complicated to have a unit standardize. I don't know what the right term is. And I don't like having to have unit convert, automatic all over the place, because I think this is going to be a fairly common operation. Okay, but anyway, the implementation, which I think is a NIC issue, does not depend on this discussion.
I mean, there also it might be not enough to just have one thing. Like, you probably don't want rarely to go to one of the exotic SI prefixes, even if it makes the things very nice and short. You want basically a scientific version, like now it was suggested to get rid of AUs officially and replace everything by petameters and bigger ones. But you also want the human ones that uses still AUs and maximal, say, megawatts and not bigger and such things.
Yes. Right, but I mean, right, but we have a lot of that stuff in Wolfram Alpha right now.
Yes.
So, I mean, just doing what Wolfram Alpha does,
But what I'm saying is, like, do you want it human-centric or do you want it basically abstract-centric?
Well, but this is why the function needs to be parameterized. This is going to be highly contentious because people will want different things.
Yes.
So that's why unit convert is already complicated. So I would prefer not to complicate it even more. So perhaps we need a fully new function dedicated to this, and then it can be used without arguments.
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting point on the live stream, which is about the precision of this. That is, if we convert this, I mean, if I do a unit convert to, for example, to days.
It stays rational. I mean, because
yeah, I mean, do we in fact lose precision in this?
We do when we call n, but we try and preserve the precision across the conversion operation. So the only time we introduce floating point errors is when we're working with something like a physical constant that has a measured value that has finite precision.
And if you have it in SI base, like the measured physical constants, we try to keep symbolic.
Right. Okay,
I mean,
so hold on. A couple of points here. First, okay, the first point is for this function, is it actually a good idea to return things with units? I think the answer is yes. Does anybody disagree with that? Then the question is, for this display here, it might be useful to show the real time, even if it's not precise, in days and hours and so on, right? But in this case, I'm beginning to think it will be better, since this is what the system. What does the system report? Is it reporting? I would have thought it would report it to higher precision, right? The clicks in the system are 1/60th of a second or something, aren't they? Why is it only reporting it as an integer number of seconds here?
I don't remember the exact implementation, but I think it only returns either milliseconds or microseconds, and I think we're losing a little bit.
Yeah, but that's not milliseconds. That's seconds there, right? That's very weird. Why is that? Oh, these are all demons. Let's try and get something which isn't a demon. Oh, how about the rocket chat helper?
Well, get the rocket chat process, because that's the one you relaunched.
Okay, so that's still in seconds for some bizarre reason. Okay, I don't understand that, Garrett.
I don't remember the exact implementation, but I can go look into it at another time.
In terms of design, seems to me the only thing we are specifically objecting to is the lack of units for those things. That correct? Anybody want to comment on anything else here?
Yeah, I think what you may want for the real time is something in hours, minutes, and seconds, like a mixed radix quantity.
Well, for what? For the output? I don't think you want that, because for programmatic use, you're going to want something which you can easily compare.
In my opinion, the output
mixed radix quantities easily to other things.
No, look, there's a question of human readability.
Representation of how long making it readable, yeah.
Right. I mean, the issue is, how long has this thing been running? I don't know how long that is. That turns out to be 12 days. Okay. So probably my computer was last rebooted 12 days ago or something.
I put something on the rocket chat for you. Maybe you can take a look at that. That's what I'm talking about.
I know I know the mixed radix. I know what you mean by mixed radix. Yes, I understand. But what's your point?
Well, that's the most readable thing to me.
I understand that's readable, but I'm saying that's not what we want as the computer, as the output for the property, because what is like making, doing computations on it, for which it's just going to be a nuisance to have it in mixed radix.
But that might make sense to have display in the box.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In the box, you can display however you want. And I agree with you that displaying it as something like this rather than 1.1 hours is probably better.
Something we have done in other cases is to reduce the precision to 3 digits in the summary boxes.
Yes.
So we could do something
reasonable. Yeah.
Equivalent with the mixed radix. So having 2, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Hours and minutes, or minutes and seconds.
Okay, but other than that, what other issues are there here? I mean, the name program as the term for, I think we discussed this at some length, right? As the term for the end of the path is considered okay. Is that true?
I think so. That's what we talked about previously.
Okay. All right. So, and this thing, I think, is quite nice. I don't really see an objection to that. I think this is what we designed. I think it's been working fine. Have you been using this particular thing?
I've used that a couple times.
So if I say, for example, real time arrow, what? Greater than what am I going to say here? Greater than 100, for example, since it doesn't have units. Great. Why did that not work?
It's
That seems wrong. I mean, because that would be what I would expect to work from the way implicit entities work. Right?
I'm wondering if it's comparing against.
Well, it's probably doing a literal compare, which is wrong. Okay, should look at this. This doesn't seem right.
Within system process data, real time is with a quantity, right? So can you compare a quantity with just an integer?
Is it a quantity? It wasn't a quantity
on my machine.
It's not a quantity here. Look. Oh,
in process object, yeah.
Oh, but it is in system process data?
Yeah,
really?
Evaluate system process data.
Okay. Oh wow. So, well, that's bizarre. So that looks like just a bug in process object. Okay. Well, fine. Yeah, no, I agree that that's not. I wouldn't have typed that if I'd known. Still didn't work. Okay. So Garrett should look into this. It's also not documented as working, though it probably should. Do you agree?
Documented for greater than or
yes,
for?
Yes.
Sense.
For the implicit entity mechanism, right? I mean, so for example, if I say threads here, arrow 10 or something, this should give me the ones that have exactly 10 threads, which there seems to be only one. Okay, so I think that's the issue there. So a little more to do on this function, but I think if we've done that, we probably can de-experimentalize it.
Okay, so a few small changes and look into this greater than a quantity.
I think so. External sessions is the next thing we have on this list. So we got start external session, like Python, for example. And that will start an external session. And then if we say external sessions, we will see that session object, correct?
Yep.
I am not totally confident of this stuff with the find external evaluators and so on mechanism. I don't think we should de-experimentalize this until we have external function working properly.
Okay. I think individually start external session and external sessions kind of make sense, but as a whole, I think I agree there's a few things that we could.
Right. I think those are very close. I think those are very likely to be right. But I think we should wait until we actually know what's happening with non-interactive languages. Okay, is there anything else in your section that is ready to discuss? Doesn't look like it. The other things okay, so the next item is live capture. So current screen image. So if I say current screen image of 1, it will screen capture my primary display. Is that correct?
Believe so. I haven't looked at current screen image a bit. That was one of the things Ian worked on, and I haven't.
Okay, well, there you go. That's what it looks like. That's cool. All right. Does it work if you do text recognize on that?
I think it recognizes some of it, but some of the smaller text it can have some trouble picking up.
And is there any, you're not downsampling in any way here, right? So this is the actual bits that are on my display driver.
Yeah, it should be the full image.
That's a bit of a mess. Is anybody, is Shadi or anybody from that team here? No, not that thing. Okay. I don't have any objection here to the the way that display screen N is specified is the same as the way that that screen information works. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's what was mentioned before.
Well, who knows that for sure?
Ian would, but
Should we see if Ian can join us for a minute? Can somebody see if Ian can join us?
well, I meant Johnson, the person who worked on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
the other Ian would probably also know, as a matter of fact. Ian Hodgnicki. Should we see if he can join us? Anybody able to do that, Eric?
I
or
can do
anybody?
that. I didn't know if that was a question for Raj. Yes, I can do it.
Okay. 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 Next up here, we've got current notebook image, which is an image of the current notebook display. Is that correct?
Yep. It should be the same thing, except for it's limited to the notebook.
Okay, well, let's just try that. And that's different from rasterize of the notebook object, right? So if I were to say rasterize of this notebook object, I would get the whole. If I say rasterize of evaluation notebook, then I will get a display of the whole notebook, correct? Fascinating. That's not exactly inspiring. Sounds like we need to, okay. So that's not great. Does anybody understand that? I think it's the wrong team of people here to discuss that in detail.
A very, very tall notebook, right? I mean,
it is a very tall notebook. Yeah, it is a very tall notebook. And maybe it did the right thing there by refusing to, okay, so that is the notebook content area, right?
Right.
So what if I want the notebook? Oh, that's actually weird. Look at what it did. Look at what it did. That's a bug. Because what it did there is it rasterized a re-rendered version of this with the in and out labels removed. Is that what one really wants?
I'm not sure, but it probably creates a copy of the notebook to screenshot it.
I bet that's what it does. And that means that those in and outs change. Well, if we can get Ian here, then he should be able to address that issue. Let's see. That's an interesting point from Vergero on the live stream. Once a round exists, unit simplify could actually keep track of unit of what precision loss there is. Well, I'm not sure whether it needs to be. Yeah, it's a good question. Whether we keep track of the precision loss in simplifying units. Okay, different issue. But and another point from Flip Phillips here is that he claims that find external evaluators doesn't, in the pre-release version, doesn't actually. Let's look in the prototype build. Let's see whether it works there. Find external evaluators apparently doesn't actually work in the pre-release version. Let's try it. Bluff. Well, that's a distinct non-working.
Wait, which version did you switch to now?
This is pre-release xkernel
12.
Oh yeah. I mean, but it's working in 11.3.
Okay.
I can talk with Flip.
Okay, but these WebDriver things, they will be gone from external evaluators. Is that true or not? When they're being factored off in their own function, are they still going to be listed in external evaluators or not?
No, that will change.
Okay.
We're not going to have these like triple like WebDriver -Chrome -headless.
No, I understand that, but I'm asking the question: is it the case that when we have the separate functions for doing WebDriver, that we will still be listing them in the external evaluators list or not?
I don't think we should.
Yeah, okay. Let's think about that.
Okay. Did we manage to find Ian Hodgnicki?
He's here. Yep.
Hello. Okay.
Hi.
We have a couple of questions for you. So we're trying to do sort of final design review on various functions, particularly the current screen image. Okay. And we want to know in current screen image, it has a notion of what is screen number 1 and so on.
Mm-hmm.
What's the front end's notion of what is screen number 1 or primary display or whatever else? And where does that come up?
So the primary screen, you never would see it referenced by numeral. So like number 1, it would just be, I think the only time you'd ever see it is in system information in the devices tab.
Okay, well, let's take a look there. But what about in the don't we have it also in screen information in the front end? Okay, so in the devices tab.
Yeah, so
well, this has screen 1 and screen 2.
It does. Yeah. That ordering is really defined by how they're enumerated. I don't know if we could actually get like, let's say for instance, Windows says that they show it as screen 4 in their, in their thing. I don't know off the top of my head if we could make that match 1-to-1.
Wait a minute. So, but hold on. So, isn't there an option in the $to front end? If I say options $front end, isn't there something called screen?
So there's currently, as of right now in 11.3, you can do current value of screen information in quotes. It is my intention to deprecate that in place of something.
What the heck is that?
I have, that's interesting. Robot tools. Huh.
What does this even mean? I mean, what's the?
Oh. It's the option thing. Yes. There's a bug, it dates back a very long time, that the front end, when it writes that out, writes them out as symbols. So that probably just got written out to some random context path that happens to be at the front of the path at the moment. Probably. But anyway, like I said, it's a bug in the front end. The front end actually writes out the symbol screen area instead of the string screen.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's very old.
Well, you should fix it.
Well, yeah. I'm actually planning on deprecating this and replacing it with a different name. It's being all redone.
Fine. That's fine. But this particular thing, this structure here, how does that correspond to this numbering 1 and 2 here and so on?
So in that's probably going by order. So, because if there's multiple, if the multiple items in the list, it's probably just going, what's the first one on the list? What's the second?
Okay, but fine. But what about if I wanted to put a window, straddling these 2 screens? Isn't there a way to do that? What is the coordinate system, and how does that correspond?
You can, but it's really hard. Because the coordinate system, all the window placement is done with window margins, which is all offsets from the left, right, top, and bottom of the primary screen. And the coordinate system, the positive direction goes inward and the negative direction goes outward.
What do you mean by inward and outward?
So like from the right-hand edge of, let's say, your primary monitor, right? If you had a value that said, Windows margins on the right-hand side was like 20, that means 20 pixels to the left of the right-hand edge of the primary monitor. It's counterintuitive.
So for example, if I do this, right, it's going to show that, right? And if I say, can I say dynamic of this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I say dynamic of that, and now I move the window around.
Yeah. So
if I go to that edge.
Well, it's probably best to see it with absolute.
With absolute options.
Yeah, so that way.
And what are those automatics doing? I mean, those are the things that are determined by the size of the window itself. Oh, I see.
Right. So automatic, basically, at some point the front end switches it, and it's like, oh, this window is closer to the bottom right edge than it is to the upper top edge. So I'm gonna flip margins to be that, to use that as the increment, basically.
I don't understand. We're not seeing that here. This is showing an absolute number and then automatic in both cases.
Right. You have so it's basically this window is 549 pixels in air quotes. It's actually point, but 366 from the left-hand edge, 121 down from the top.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you move the window down at some point and over to the right, at some point you'll see the automatic jumps to the other dimension.
Well,
right?
I didn't see that. I'm moving the window and it's not happening.
Except it did. The first one is now before on the other side. Like, so the first one.
Oh, yeah, shoot. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Well, it's cool, except it makes it really, it's non-trivial to spec out that I want it to straddle certain areas.
No, I understand. But the reason we've done this is so that when you set up some initial configuration for your application, you can do that in a way that doesn't depend on screen size. I mean, this was invented decades ago, long before people had ever heard of responsive design.
Right. Yes.
So,
and also in a world where you only have one monitor, the majority of the time.
Right. But so let me ask two questions. First of all, does anybody know how in the current world of interface switched, how this would relate to that? And in other words, what the analog of our responsive design approach for that would be for this? Question one. Question two, what is the story with multiple monitors here? And is this just completely crazy with multiple monitors?
I don't know the answer to the first one. Okay. I have not thought on, I haven't thought about that in a long time. And I haven't even talked with John about it. So I don't know. In the multiple monitor world, I've toyed with this a little bit, but I don't have a really good answer yet.
Okay.
I mean, it would be a fundamentally different thing. I don't know if this could easily be something that we
fair enough.
Bolt onto window margins. I think it would have to change if you wanted to make it so you wanted to go, this is always on the right-hand most monitor. That doesn't fit window margins at all.
Yeah, it would probably be window monitor or something, or window screen.
I don't know.
Right, fair enough. So what this is saying is this coordinate system is based on this layout of monitors, which is essentially the mouse coordinate system, right? Because it's what determines where my mouse, what happens if I move my mouse to the left, to the right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that defines a coordinate system, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that's what we see here, because that's going to the negative side of my secondary monitor, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So the question is whether it's a little bit of a weird situation, isn't it?
Yes, it's very weird. It also gets harder once a couple of things get done. But
okay, so the issue that we're trying to decide is we've got a design here for a current screen image, which is a fairly straightforward function, except that the specified rectangle from the image of all current display screens. So you're telling me if I have something, okay, so that coordinate system is the same coordinate system as, what the heck do the C also say here? Oh, they do discuss window margins. So that's the coordinate system of the window margins of the, the mouse navigable screen area. Is that correct?
They'll be yes. Its origin is based on the upper left-hand corner. So as you can see,
no, actually, what it says this is crazy. Okay, look at what this says. Coordinates are measured from the bottom left of the complete area of all current display screens. That's different from the coordinate system being used by window margins.
Right. That's a very interesting. Well, that's a very interesting spec to say, because that's basically what that's saying is it's going to treat all the monitors, the geometry of the monitor as basically one gigantic rectangle. So
yes, I know, but that's
zero,
different.
zero could be completely and totally off screen. That would be really weird. Possibly.
What do you mean? So if I were to take, for example, a let's say I say here, I say 0, well, x min, y min, 0, 0, let's say 2020. Okay, then the question is where the heck is that? That looks distinctly like that corner up there.
Make it 200, 200. Or something significantly bigger with more.
Yeah, that's that top corner. That's that corner of this window. You can't probably see the green outline because that's part of the live streaming.
Zoom overlay.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so what this says is actually wrong. It's actually complete nonsense. The coordinates are measured from the y min, in this case, is at the top left. So it's complete nonsense. Okay. System information. The list of all display screens is devices screen information. Okay. Well, this is inconsistent, so there's a problem here. And why doesn't this auto-complete? It's another problem that somebody should report. For some reason.
I'll mention it. I'll mention it. Yeah.
Who's doing project management here? Do we have a PM, or is Raj supposed to be covering that?
Raj, are you taking notes? If there's nobody there, then I'll it's recorded, so we'll go over it, make sure everything, all the accidents are taken care of. So, but Raj, you should do that.
Okay, so that was just an autocomplete problem. Okay, so there's an inconsistency here. This looks like a bug. We should resolve it. Otherwise, apart from this issue, I consider current screen image good to go for de-experimentalization, but this needs to be unscrambled. So what the coordinate system should be.
Fix that in the documentation and then...
fix it in what it's supposed to do, because I'm not sure what it's supposed to do. And you need to agree with Ian what it's supposed to do. Right? Okay. You guys just need to agree that the coordinate system is whatever this coordinate system is, should agree with what this coordinate system is. And I'm really surprised they don't. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, current notebook image. We're looking at that. That seems to be much less controversial, except that it is incompatible with the way that rasterize is working on a notebook object. So Ian, were you aware that rasterize on a notebook object is kind of, like, for example, if I try and do it for this notebook object, it's just going to say it requires too much memory. Does that surprise you?
Too much. It surprises me that it says it requires too much memory for that. But of course, I guess I don't see everything that's there.
Well, it's a big, long notebook.
The issue, so the interesting bit about that is that, a lot, I'm not going to say hard values here because they change, but there are platform dependencies on how big we can allocate surface that we can render.
So this is actually not memory available. This is some kind of screen buffer.
Yeah, well, in the end, it's for us, it's still like a memory buffer. It's a memory buffer that you're storing bits in, right? But
no, I understand. But this is not. It's like somebody says, if I buy more, RAM for my computer,
it would fit, right? And that's not the case.
Yeah, it's not the case. So this message is kind of wrong,
right?
What are you doing? You're rendering it off-screen display buffer or something?
Yeah, because you've effectively asked. I need an image of the entire contents of that notebook, which is not the same as I'm asking for an image of what I can see in that.
No, I understand. What I can see is what the current notebook image does, and that's working fine. But this is not working, which is a separate issue, and I'm trying to understand what that is. And first of all, the message is crazy, because it should say something like, allocated screen buffer is not large enough to rasterize or something, right?
Yeah.
So that will be a thing to communicate to Shadi and her folks. But more to the point, why is it that you can't do this? I mean, you can't do it in sections or what?
Could we tile it?
Or do we care? I mean, is this something that people are going to... I'm surprised this doesn't come up in the cloud system. I mean, what does the cloud do when it needs to rasterize a piece of a very tall notebook? Do you know?
I don't.
And this may in fact be a bug inside the cloud that is not readily seen. So can
Perhaps
somebody point that out to Jan? Raj, I guess that's you since there's no project manager.
Yeah, I'm making notes, yes.
It's possible that we might be able to get away with stitching it. I mean, in the end, we still have to assemble it.
Yeah, but the assembly is just purely an image object. The assembly is not a problematic thing, I think.
Well, for us, because all of our images are real. I mean, I'm going to say real. I'm making air quotes there. They are system, bitmap, objects, resources, whatever you want to call them.
Yes.
We don't treat them as just like it's a flat list of bytes. But it's possible. It's worthy of looking into to see if we can do something about that.
Okay. All right. But I mean, I don't know how important it is, but I think you should ask the cloud people. Okay. Here's the next issue. See this? That's the rasterization here. And what you notice is that the in-out labels got redone here.
Yes. Yes.
Would you care to comment on that?
So this is not the first time I've seen it. I've seen that before. Fixing it.
Okay, so here's another point.
It kind of goes against. So in for instance, I mean, what happens under the hood? Under the hood, when you do rasterize of that, under the hood, it is going to pick it up and move it someplace else so it can play with something. And the act of picking it up and moving it someplace else triggers the input and output labels to think that they're no longer associated. It's like a copy paste thing, right?
I understand.
Like that. That's what's going on. To make it so it doesn't do that, yeah, we can do it. But that's why it does it, because it thinks that it's no longer associated.
No, I'm aware of why it does it, but I mean that's actually something which presumably would want to be an option for rasterize, because it depends what you're using the rasterization for.
Sure.
Okay, but clearly this rasterization is something very different. And it's also totally bizarre because it's like, why does it have certain window elements and not other window elements? Why does it not have the left margin of the window, but it does have the scroll bar?
To me, it looks like it's losing a few pixels on just the margin of the window, like all the way around. And I think it's just keeping the scroll bar from that.
Yeah, I mean, seeing that's from what I know of how that's implemented, things could be changed since the last time I looked at this. But, if it's going based off of, I have these coordinates, it would have no idea if, Mac in this instance added, a drop shadow of, like 12 pixels to the left. Only the window manager would know that those are there. So depending on how they set that up, I could see that being cropped off a little prematurely. Windows, I could see that happening on Windows really easily, because Windows, the metrics for the actual outer, like the outermost frame, like the colored part, what it reports and what it actually draws isn't necessarily a one-to-one correlation, because they're trying to do that for compatibility reasons.
Okay, so bottom line is there's kind of a mess around this. By the way, it was pointed out on the live stream that the last example here well, it's not clear it's wrong. It is doing what the documentation says it should do, but it doesn't appear to be what it actually does. So there's something goofed up with that coordinate system. Okay, with respect to this, what you're basically saying is it's a big complicated mess what window elements can actually get displayed and how far out it goes.
We can make educated guesses, but I mean, you can only be as accurate as the numbers that we get. And I know on Windows that is not always 100% true.
Okay.
So you can make educated guesses. You can look up to see what the metrics are for, the frame thickness and, all of that other fun jazz. But it won't be bulletproof. There will always be.
I mean, look, I don't think we care right now. Any pixels that lie outside display areas, color specified by background. Okay, so if I say this, and then I say background arrow red, what am I seeing here? I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if the idea is that if it was,
I know what it is.
If it was below the wind, if it was partially off screen, it would fill the rest with a certain color.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to try that here.
That's interesting.
What?
It made. Oh no. That just cropped to it. Interesting.
But not only did it crop, it also included the
green overlay. Yeah, because that's done a lot of the times. Because you can only gain access to the bits that the window manager, the compositor, is actually using. That's visible.
Okay, so this is very confused. This background option doesn't appear to be doing anything. Or is it the case that if I were to put, I don't know whether I can even do this, but if I were to put that window in front there, actually, let me bring up a palette which will live in front.
That's good. Yeah.
Let's bring up the special characters palette, and let's just stick that right in the middle there. And now let's recapture. Oh, great! Huh.
Yeah.
This is pretty confused. Okay, this requires further investigation, guys. Sorry. Garrett, I think that's for you.
Yep. That's okay, I think.
Okay.
I thought it was in a pretty good state, but
it
looks like there's a couple things we can look into.
But they're not too bad, and I would expect there's a decent chance this is going to make it out of experimental for version 12. Okay, I think that's what we needed Ian for. Actually, if Ian could just stick around just for a moment here. You are recommending, okay, so you're recommending not de-experimentalizing network packet capture. Why is that? What is the story with network packet capture, and whether, oh, this was totally wrong because we're going to rename that one. That's network packet trace.
So a lot of those are in somewhat decent state other than the rename. Network packet capture has the redesign for the interface.
And what the heck is this? This is 150% magnification, and this thing looks terrible. That looks like a bitmap, an oversized bitmap. That shouldn't be a bitmap. It should be a vector thing. Right?
That's fair. The whole thing's getting replaced. The last one.
Is it replaced in the prototype build?
I added it, but I haven't tested it yet, so it could be.
Network packet capture. Well, there's some weirdness there. Oh. But let's try this. So what are you saying? This is, oh my gosh, well, that looks horrifying. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely still prototype, but
okay. All right, fine. All right, well, so that's not ready for prime time. PCAP. Okay, I don't think there's anything else for Ian here then. I thought there might be in terms of talking about that interface, but that's not. Thank you, Ian.
Okay, thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay, PCAP. So you claim this is good to go?
I think that's just an import of a file type. So that's not as dependent on permissions as the other functions are. So I think...
Right, so the issue for these other functions is the permissioning stuff.
A lot of it is right now, yeah.
Okay.
Just because unless you do certain configurations, depending on your system, you might have some difficulty capturing packets. And I'd like a chance to just kind of streamline that a little bit more before we...
Using system install or something like that, or what?
Yeah, one of the ways we might do it is system install on Windows. There's just a driver that might need to be installed. On Linux and Mac, there's some system settings, and we might have like a pop-up box or something like that that can let you agree to it, but none of that's...
You know, I don't think we should experimentalize any of this stuff. I think this is all kind of complicated Wild West stuff. I don't even know. I mean, this network interfaces thing, okay, my machine is a fairly simple machine. I have no idea what this looks like on some kind of and how do these network... Okay. I'm not confident of this. But the socket stuff, however, better be de-experimentalizable. I mean, that's been out and about for ages, hasn't it?
Yeah. All of that.
And why is it still experimental?
Good to me. I imagine just because it was new before. I don't know of the specific.
The CMQ functionality is new with sockets, so that's relatively new.
Oh yeah.
And what about this thing with record separators and so on? I haven't looked at this stuff in great detail. Who has? Arnaud, have you looked at this in great detail? I mean, I did look at it when we were first designing it, but I have not looked at it again.
I have used it. I've not reviewed it. I mean, it's all working for me, or at least, you know, when I follow the examples in the documentation, you know, it's in a workable state.
Okay. Does anybody else here have a
function by function?
What's that?
I've not gone through it function by function, like as in like a QA testing type situation.
For TCP sockets, the function is applied to every data buffer generated by the OS. Oh boy. Okay, Garrett, can you explain what this thing is doing?
So socket listener sets up a listener, and it gives you the option to set up a function for when it gets a packet. So that's just explaining for TCP sockets, every time it gets, you know, a buffer of data, that function sees it.
And how is that? What's the analog of that in device read?
In device read,
yes. In other words, device read is also getting buffers of data and doing something with it. But I don't think it has this idea of a function that's automatically applied to the data.
I don't think it has a listener set up either for device read. I don't know if there is a direct analog yet.
Okay. What is the relationship between this stuff and webhooks and triggered tasks? Any idea? Who knows what the relationship between sockets and webhooks is? That's a deafening silence. Maybe we have the wrong set of people here. Oh boy. You know, these things being de-experimentalized, I don't know. I don't feel completely confident about this socket stuff, especially not in a world where we're about to... Okay, what's the relationship between this stuff and things like URL submit?
I mean, URL submit would submit the request and then kind of wait for it asynchronously, right? I don't know the exact mechanism that it's doing the kind of asynchronous wait. I imagine listeners setting up either some kind of internal machine setting to kind of listen or wait, or it's doing some kind of thread. I don't know the specific details of it though.
But it would be nice to know between, look, we've got multiple things here. We've got channel listen, we've got socket listen, we've got and we've got things like URL submit. I mean, we designed all these things a while ago. I'm just a little bit concerned about the relationship between them. Because this has handler functions. Okay, who knows about this stuff? Is it Fahim? Is it Igor? Anybody know? Raj, do you know who these functions are assigned to?
Channel listen would be Igor, and URL submit would be Fahim.
Okay, and this function is Garrett, is that right?
Right.
Yes, I mean, he took over.
But there hasn't been much development since I took over, so
Who did this originally?
Ian Johnson did a lot of the ZeroMQ.
No, but that's the ZeroMQ part. What about the TCP part? Who did the TCP part?
That may have been Dave Liberick.
Okay.
Not sure, but I think that's. But the ZeroMQ.
No, I know ZeroMQ
is a little bit more useful. Yeah. For our
introduced
purposes,
in 11.2. This claims that socket listen was all introduced in 11.2.
I think that's correct. That's because that came with the ZeroMQ functionality.
But so there were other pieces of socket functionality that
I think there was one. There was one function like socket open or something. There's one socket function that's older. I'm not sure exactly which one, but
well, all of these are listing 11.2.
Well, one of them probably isn't. So let me see if I can find the one.
I think socket open existed prior to that.
Yeah.
It says 11.2.
Yeah.
I think socket open was documented in 11.2.
Socket Connect was introduced in 10.3 and was updated in 11.2.
What did Socket Connect do before we had Socket Open?
Well, see the examples. I mean, that's basically like, connecting to a socket remotely and then just, writing.
So that
was the simplest form.
Right. So this is the 2-line web server type deal. Is that right?
No, like client, right? It's a client, like you're connecting to a server.
Oh, I see. So this is so this is saying, I see, there's port 80, that's on HTTP, that's port 80. So now why is it? Oh, it's writing. So this is the 2-line web client. So this is connect to that socket, write a GET request, and read the result back. And there it's coming back as sometime HTTP response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but this is not tagged as experimental. This is a complicated mess. Why is socket object is not experimental either? So only socket listen, which is the asynchronous listener, is experimental and its friends. Correct? Why exactly socket object doesn't refer to socket listen, I don't know. Well, I think these are probably going to be okay to de-experimentalize, although I would really like to understand the relationship. How about you get a little bit more information about the relationship to these other things?
Okay, I'll set up that meeting.
Okay. All right, I see last on our list here is for this current iteration is entity store. I think it'd be crazy to de-experimentalize that right now in the middle of the database integration project. I mean, is there any pressing need? I mean, also, I assume we've got entity register is supposed to be, we're just not ready to do this. It's still tied up with, some of the detailed options are still tied up with the database integration project. So I don't think there's a thing to do there. All right, Raj, give us a sense of what we've got. We're not doing, this is actually a disappointingly small fraction that we're de-experimentalizing. can you give me a sense of what other big chunks there are?
Well, I scheduled machine learning and system modeler stuff for next meeting because they are two big chunks, and I didn't think we would fit in this meeting. So that's
in the
already.
machine learning stuff. Is it like hundreds of neural net layers and things like this?
No, I mean, I distinguish between neural nets and machine learning. So I'm still waiting on neural network updates from Tally. So machine learning is, classify, predict, that section.
Right. And in particular, things like active classify, which are
Right.
fairly ornate designs that I don't think have been sufficiently battle tested.
Right. So, for example, what I have for next meeting is for machine learning is feature space plot 3D, find textual answer.
That one is going to go straight through. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, preserve color, active classification and active classification object, active prediction and active prediction object, feature nearest, feature space plot, sequence predict, predictive function, then dimension reduce.
Okay. So there are plenty of these that are going to be de-experimentalizable. That's good. I think the ones that are going to be more complicated are things like active classification.
Right. And likewise, for system modeler, we have system model analytics design, the create system model, system model, system model.
I think only a minority of those things are going to make it. I think there's all kinds of stuff there that isn't ready.
Right.
What's the status of the what happened to the system model browser thing, and the unification of all such repository and so on browsers? Anybody know? You don't know?
No, I
do you know?
No, I don't.
Okay, so that was supposed to be some meeting that is about unification of in notebook browsers. I think that would be for Eric to go chase. All right, anything else for this meeting? Nope. Okay, well, thanks for folks on the live stream. Lots of useful comments, and until the next time. I'm a little disappointed that we're, I had hoped that we would be getting 3/4 of these de-experimentalized, but obviously the process we're going through is, a iterative polishing process, and that's why we tag these things as experimental. All right, thanks a lot, guys. See you later.